October 2 will mark the 10-year anniversary of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's mega Swachh Bharat mission, a mission which started in 2014 and was a roaring success because of the fundamental changes it brought to the ground when it came to the issue of removing open defecation as well as ensuring sanitation in a country as big as India. Uh, I am joined today by Mr. Parameswaran Iyer. He is presently the executive director with the World Bank, but he is also the man who led the Swachh Bharat mission for the Modi government. He was the first person who was made in charge of the mission. He led it till 2020, also worked post later with the Niti Aayog. But now he's in the US and he's joining us straight from Washington. Mr. Iyer, quite a momentous occasion. A decade will be complete on October 2nd on the Swachh Bharat mission. When you launched it, did you expect that this mission will acquire the kind of proportion it did? And what was your experience of leading this mission?
Now, thanks, Aman. It is a momentous occasion, the 10th anniversary of the Swachh Bharat mission. And as you mentioned, it's had phenomenal impact. It took Prime Minister Modi's bold vision when I remember that very important day, 15th August 2014, his first Independence Day speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort, where he started talking about this big program. He spoke about this hitherto taboo subject of open defecation. He spoke about the indignity of women and girls who had to go out in the dark. And then he made a huge commitment, which took the country and I would say the world by storm, when he said that by 2nd October 2014, the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, that India would become Swachh. And he announced the launching of the Swachh Bharat mission from 2nd October 14. So looking back, I think phenomenal progress. It took the kind of very bold vision of the Prime Minister, setting a time frame, and for an issue which, hitherto had happened sort of incrementally, but he made that commitment, and then under his leadership he delivered on that commitment, and it made a big difference even globally, because at that time about 60% of the open defecation in the world was in India. And if sustainable development goal, we have just coming from the United Nations General Assembly, people are reporting on the progress of SDGs, and this made a huge dent in SDG number 6, which is access to sanitation and water. But beyond that, Aman, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, this program made a huge difference in the quality of life of people on the ground, particularly women and girls, who no longer had to go out in the dark, either early morning or late evening. And then there's been other major impacts, the health impact. Recently there was in Nature, in the journal Nature, the peer-reviewed journal, they estimated that the Swachh Bharat mission led to the saving of lives of children and infants, 50 to 70,000 lives a year. That's a major health impact which the Swachh Bharat mission contributed to. In addition to that, it had an economic impact. UNICEF did a study which showed that in every open defecation free village, each household could save up to 50,000 rupees a year on account of avoided medical fees, time savings, etc. So I think in addition to the dignity of women and girls and general health, economic impact, health impact, but I think in many ways it also led to the Jan Andolan, where people took matters into their own hands under the inspiration of the Prime Minister, and then how the center worked with states and districts and villages and sarpanchas, the village community, made it their own program. And whenever their village, they declared themselves open defecation free, they would take out a Gaurav Yatra. So it became a matter of pride. And I think Swachh Bharat, has gone from strength to strength. Initially, the focus was on open defecation. Later, it moved on to a broader definition of Swachhata. It started looking at solid and liquid waste management. And I think importantly, mechanisms for sustaining the outcomes of ODF were also put in place.
And Mr. Iyer, it was also quite, striking for me at that time that Prime Minister speaking from the Red Fort about toilets. This was, I think, many people were taken aback that why is he speaking about toilets from the Red Fort? Does this issue merit so much attention of the Prime Minister? Also, I think the woman dignity part that you pointed out, the term your team had pointed, Izzat Ghar, the toilet being the Izzat Ghar. How did that come about, and how was the Prime Minister's initial speech taken, speaking from the Red Fort?
Look, I think that speech took, as I said, the nation but the world by storm. This is the first time that the head of government anywhere in the world, from a public forum addressing the entire nation and the world, was talking about open defecation from the ramparts of the Red Fort, and not only was talking about it, but was committing to end it. It was a very, very bold vision, and I think it took everyone by storm. And then the even more important part was he followed through on it. So it was a big idea, and then the delivery mechanism was set in place, how the center and the states worked together and took it in a federal setup all the way down to the community level. I think that was remarkable. And then, as you mentioned, the term Izzat Ghar. This was something the Prime Minister spotted on a trip to Varanasi. And he was immediately taken aback. There was a toilet which was written Izzat Ghar. And he said, listen, this is really at the heart of this program. And then we found out that, that was how in UP at the time, they were promoting the program that the toilet is not something to be ashamed of. It is actually a place for dignity and respect. And if you remember that movie Toilet Ek Prem Katha, that in fact symbolized the movement. And then the Prime Minister was very keen that Izzat Ghar be translated into all of India's 22 official languages. So it started being used in multiple languages all across the country because at the heart of the program, it was a national program and it had many messages for the world. In fact, when the Minister of Health and Sanitation from Nigeria came to India in 2018, he was so impressed with the program that they went back to Nigeria and they started the Clean Nigeria campaign for sanitation. So it had multiple ripple effects which went well beyond national borders.
Well, but Mr. Iyer, it must not have been easy, working with a plethora of state governments, UTs, getting the program, there were stiff deadlines also. How do you think the Prime Minister's image, the Prime Minister's, communication about this program really maybe made your job easy at the end of the day?
Look, it was the wind at our back. In many ways, Prime Minister Modi was our communicator in chief. He never missed an opportunity to talk about the importance of sanitation, whether it was through his monthly Man Ki Baat program, whether it was at different events. And it made a very big difference in a federal system. And he made it very clear from the beginning. This was a completely non-political program. We had to reach out to all the states, irrespective of which political party was ruling it. And we had to go out, reach out, provide technical assistance, financial assistance, and really make it a Jan Andolan. And I think he emphasized that all throughout. And he monitored the program. I remember we had gone to Champaran in Bihar, where he addressed a huge rally of Swachhagrahis. So his ability to motivate, but also to put in the substantive messages, that was phenomenal.
Well, absolutely. And that is, I think, also a key to the success of the entire program, as Mr. Iyer is saying, the economic impacts of that. I think there was a one study done, Mr. Iyer, about how the cost which was incurred by people on health, came down because of the program, because people were falling sick much less often than, after the toilets came into existence, isn't it?
No, exactly. In fact, as I mentioned, so that study, which was conducted by UNICEF, actually showed that when a village became open defecation free, each household in the village, on average, could save up to 50,000 rupees a year on account of avoided medical fees. In fact, we used to bring out a cartoon calendar, Aman, by the late Sudhir Dar. And one of his cartoons was very striking, where he showed a doctor idly swatting flies outside the primary healthcare center because he had no more patients to treat. He didn't have much work to do. So that was in a lighter vein, but it made a huge impact on the ground. There's no question the health impact was very significant.
Absolutely. And this is what also the latest study of Nature showed us, that, it's carried in the Nature Science Journal as Mr. Iyer was mentioning that 50,000 to 60,000 children lives saved every year. Big contributor to that maybe have been the Swachh Bharat mission. Thank you so much, Mr. Iyer, for joining us from Washington, throwing light on some nostalgia also about the program, which has been a roaring success for other parts of the world, and many have actually replicated it, as Mr. Iyer was mentioning. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Aman.